Hi. To start off, before we continue any further, I just want to stress that this is going to be a very heavy topic that we're going to be talking about. Trigger warnings for suicide, transphobia, genocide, the whole nine. We're going to be talking about a lot. If you don't feel like you're capable of handling this kind of a discussion right now, there is no shame in taking a break, coming back. If you're watching the video version of this, maybe skipping this one or coming back to it when you're at a better headspace. Trust me, took me a while to even talk about this because I have been going through all of the emotions myself, and it's not fun. And we want you to take care of yourself. If you're in chat right now, you can get links to crisis hotlines if you need them. But we have to talk about Eden Night, and this has been something that I have been mulling over in my head for a while. For those of you who do not know, Eden Knight was a trans woman from Saudi Arabia. She was essentially tricked into moving back to Saudi Arabia and was forcibly detransitioned by her family. That is the TLDR, but I do want to go over her story in detail because it is important to talk about and important to go over why this matters and what we are fighting for. So I am going to actually pull up the document that was put together by, I believe, Merrick DeVille and a couple of others who were going over this, and we're going to read through some of this. Again, trigger warnings. This is going to be very heavy, so let's go ahead and get into it. So this is the document that was put together, and I'm just going to kind of read through some of this because I think they're going to be able to tell this story a lot better than I could. We are friends of Eden Knight, who is a trans woman from Saudi Arabia living in America. She was tricked by financial support from fixers, allegedly hired by her parents, into moving back to Saudi Arabia and detransitioning. Eden was funny, sharp, well read, and concerned with making the world a better place. She stood up for marginalized people and regularly critiqued the conservative, suffocating culture she left back home. On the morning of March 12th, 2023, Eden posted her suicide note on Twitter. In it, Eden laid out how she was manipulated into depending on people hired by her powerful parents to pose as friends, but whose actual goal was to force her to detransition and move back to Saudi Arabia. They succeeded. This morning of Monday, March 13th, 2023, Eden's family confirmed both her passing in Saudi Arabia and their identity. We are greatly disturbed by how she was treated. We believe that what happened to her was an unspeakable violation and there must be consequences. Justice must be served. In this document, we have laid out some of the pieces of evidence that we believe tell Eden's story and expose the ways she was failed and violated by her parents, by powerful American citizens willing to do anything for money, by a Saudi government official who posed as a friend, and by the US justice and immigration systems that should have been there to offer her asylum and safety. She deserved better in life, and she deserves better in death. With love and care, Friends of Eden. This is obviously a very poignant letter. I will go through more of this in a minute, but I just want to take a second here because it's a lot. Um, to be perfectly clear, I did not know that much about Eden before all of this. I was vaguely aware of her through her Twitter presence. I think I am mutuals on Twitter with a few people who did know her well. But I, to be clear, did not know her. That said, this obviously did affect me a lot, and I think it affected a lot of people. And I think there are really good reasons why that is. It's very hard to see such a public passing, and it's especially difficult when it is suicide. I do want to read through some of what she wrote because these are her words, and it is important that her story be told. Her note described in detail some of what happened. Sometime in the summer, I was contacted by Michael Pocolico through an IRL friend who claimed he was a fixer and wanted to fix the issue that was between me and my parents. I thought this was impossible. I'm transgender, and they are strict conservative Muslims, but I decided I would give it a shot because it can't hurt, right? At a certain point, I realized I was entirely dependent on Bader. This is a separate person. This is a Saudi official, I believe, for food and shelter, and that if I ran away, he could easily find my location and since I was illegal, I would have just been deported to Saudi. I subconsciously gave up. I was too tired, did everything he asked, cut my hair, I stopped taking estrogen, I changed my wardrobe, I met my dad. And by the end of the note, she says, I wanted to be a leader for people like me. That wasn't written to happen. I hope that the world gets better for us. I hope our people get old. Hope we get to see our kids grow up to fight for us. I hope for trans rights worldwide. Goodbye. And this was the last thing that she posted. And the reason I'm going over this, the reason that I'm telling this story again, because I know I am not the first person to talk about this. Everyone on the online left has already talked about it. And I'm kind of late to the party here. The reason I'm talking about this is because this is directly related to overall what we are going through, what we are fighting for. Initially, I was going to do a separate segment about some of the transgenocide rhetoric that's been going on, but I have instead decided to lump this all in together because this right here, this story, and this document is public, by the way. If anyone wants to read through all of this, I don't think I'm going to go through the entire thing today, but if anyone wants to read through all of this, it is available. I can send it to you. The reason I'm going through all of this is because of stories like this. I did not get the chance to go over this last time I streamed, and since it's been a minute, haven't had a chance to look at it since. This was something that happened very early this month. Michael Knowles called for the eradication of transgenderism at CPAC. And this is just one example, by the way, of the genocidal rhetoric that is going on. As this article, this based-ass Rolling Stone article points out, somehow Michael Knowles claims he is not calling for the elimination of transgender people, which is insane. I want to point out a couple of things in this article. I don't want to read the entire thing. You can read it yourself. It's really good. I want to point out a couple of things that have been said. So here are Michael Knowles' words. For the good of society, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. A whole preposterous ideology at every level. Later on, in defending this, in defending his crusade against news organizations that correctly pointed out that he was advocating for genocide, he said, I called to ban transgenderism entirely. They said that I was calling for the extermination of transgender people. They said I was calling for genocide. One, I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people because genocide refers to genes. It refers to genetics. It refers to biology. Knowles said, ahistorically, again, based article. Nobody is calling to exterminate anybody because the other problem with that statement is that transgender people is not a real ontological category. It is not a legitimate category of being. There are people who think that they are the wrong sex, but they are mistaken. They're laboring under a delusion, and so we need to correct that delusion. This is genocide rhetoric. This is laying the groundwork for genocide. Why I'm talking about both of these things together is because this right here is what this man wants. I want to be 100% clear here. Michael Knowles wants more people like Eden Knight. That is the conclusion of his advocacy. We are not talking about some vague idea of ideological warfare. We are talking about real, living, breathing people. Michael Knowles is justifying this because trans people are not a real ontological category. It's not a legitimate category of being, according to him. We need to correct their delusion. Exactly how do you correct that delusion? Exactly what mechanisms must you use to get there? The only way you can do that is with state power, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. What Michael Knowles is calling for is to leverage state power against a category of people a category that he believes doesn't exist, but a category of people nonetheless. Even if he doesn't believe that transgender people are what they say they are, he believes the people exist. He wants to correct their delusion. The only thing he can do is leverage state power to do that through laws, through the police, through the military. However, whichever ways he can advocate for safely, but he has to leverage state power to do that. And at the end of it, this is one of those results. What happened to this woman was, and I'm not going to say that this was human trafficking because, well, I'm no legal expert. But what happened to this woman was kind of sounds like human trafficking in order to forcibly detransition her, in order to correct her delusion. In his words, that's what her parents were doing. As Aztec just said in chat, even if you're being delusionally charitable, it's advocating for conversion therapy, which is still leveraging state power because how else are you going to enforce it? This is genocide rhetoric. This is what that leads to. I don't want to make it seem like there is no hope. I am going to hope pill all of you. It is my goal. But this is very serious. We should take it seriously. When Michael Knowles, when Matt Walsh, when other members of the Daily Wire, or just conservatives in general, we're seeing this happen in Florida, Ron DeSantis, we're seeing it in Tennessee, West Virginia. When all of these people are advocating for these laws, for these restrictions to be put in place, this is what they want. This is the conclusion of their actions. They want more Eden Knights. They won't say that that's what they want, of course. They can't say that that's what they want because they don't want to look like monsters, but they are monsters. This is what they want. And it is important to keep pointing that out. In a speech, Michael Knowles says, there can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It can be all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. If it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially when that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, then transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely, the whole preposterous ideology at every level. This is what happens when you try to correct the delusion, in his words. Yeah, it's basically the 14 words. It literally is. I'm talking about all of this together because ultimately, I think it's worth acknowledging that all of this is connected. You can't separate trans people from transgenderism, even if I accepted transgenderism was a thing. There is no separating it. When you're going after some vague notion of an ideological push, you're going after the people who believe that ideological push. That's the logical conclusion. There is no separating that. Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Mitch McConnell, all of the ghouls that are out there trying to advocate for these laws, for these restrictions, when they are doing so, they are laying the groundwork for more Eden Knights. We cannot let that happen. I don't want it to seem like we are being hopeless. So we're not going to do the hopeless thing. Okay? We're going to end this on a positive note. That being, what can you do? I have been stressing this the entire time that I have been doing this, the entire time that I have been streaming. That has been my goal, to push the efficacy. I don't want people falling into the powerlessness. Doomerism isn't helpful. It's not healthy. There are things we can do. For starters, the reason that people like Michael Knowles can even say what they say is because of the power that they're leveraging. We need more of that. It is important. This is why we say that representation matters, right? We need more people in these same positions. Why it's good to see so many trans people running for office Why it's good to see so many of them getting positions in media organizations, being reporters, being educators. We need more people in these fields. We need to be visible. It goes back to normalization. Normalization happens from the ground up. It happens from us being in society. The more normal we are, the more we are around, the harder it is for them to get rid of us. Harder it is for them to justify getting rid of us too. That's just one part of it. Raising awareness, bullying your politicians. I know I stress this a lot, but it is important. It is something that you should do. I know it doesn't feel like it does anything because you can't see the direct result of your action right there. But I promise you, as someone who has run for office, as someone who has worked in political campaigning, it matters. Email your officials, call their offices, send them physical letters. That does a lot, by the way. A lot harder to ignore like physical, actual letters than it is to ignore emails. You have no idea how much of an impact it actually has. We're going to be talking here in a little bit about a particular state senator. And I bring it up here because it's another example of things that you can do. Giving praise where it's due, letting allies know that we value their input, that we value their efforts, contacting your representatives to let them know that you want them to make more positive laws. Not just vote against the negative ones, but that you want them to make more positive ones. This is all important stuff. This is stuff we can do. We don't have direct influence over the laws. That is painfully obvious. But we can pressure people. We should be. My state just a few days ago passed through committee a bill that would ban trans healthcare for youth. I don't know when it's going to go for a full vote. I still need to pay attention to that. When it does, I'm fairly certain my ass is going to be going to the state house. But if you can do things like that, do it. Go out and protest. Testify. We need that more than ever. People testifying to their legislature, especially at the state and local level. We desperately need that. And I know not everyone can do all of this stuff. That's why it is still important, if you can, to do whatever you can online. Posting is praxis. Not everything, but it is praxis. These are things that we can do. We have control over this. And this is what Eden wanted. She said that at the end of her note. We owe this to people like her to fight for them. Even if you can't do that direct action yourself, getting the word out, somebody who can will. Talking to family members, friends, coworkers, like you have no idea the little things that you can do. Like it seems really silly to say, but like even the stuff that feels like it doesn't matter, like when I go to work and I wear a trans pride pin, is that changing the laws? No. It does help with normalization, even a little bit. Little things like that matter. There are things that we can do, little ways that we can take back control. It's important to talk about people like Eden Knight because telling those stories, it reminds us that we matter. Eden mattered. Every single person like her that took their own life or that murdered Breonna J, they matter. And we need to do what we can. There are things that we can do. Let's do it. Feeling hopeless isn't going to help anyone. We need less hopelessness. I don't really have much else to say other than rest in power, Eden. I hope that the people involved in this have some level of justice. And I'm incredibly sad that it even got to this point. I will see you in another segment.